I helped end slavery and free many slaves. I am Harriet Tubman. I was born in Maryland, but nobody knows what year because they didn't think it was worth remembering. But people think I was born in 1820 or 1821. I have a mom and dad, 2 sisters, and 2 brothers. I fell in love with John Tubman, a free man, but he said if I tried to escape, he would tell my master. I escaped at night when John was asleep. After walking for days, I reached Pennsylvania where I was free. I went back to Maryland to save my brothers and more slaves. By this point, my husband and I were no longer married. After that, I was in the Union War, and eventually 2 books were written about me. And then Nelson Davis became my husband until his death in 1888. I died in Auburn, New York on March 10, 1913, from pneumonia at the age of 93. I was so successful in saving many from slavery. I once said I never ran my train off the track and I never lost a passenger. I am Harriet Tubman.
I am famous for my nursing and caring for soldiers and helping in the Crimean War. I am Florence Nightingale, better known as Lady with the Lamp. I was born in Florence, Italy on May 12, 1820. I had an older sister named Francy who wasn't the nicest to me. I grew up in London, Derbyshire, and Hampshire, all in temporary homes. I was planning to marry Richard Malcolm Miles, but did not want to give up nursing. My family was extremely disappointed in me, especially Francy. She wanted to gain popularity from me, so someone would ask to marry her. I then contracted criminal fever for the first time and nearly died, but I eventually recovered. Hospitals at the time were overcrowded and dirty. I worked to change that. I then had 2 newspapers written about me. Sadly, I contracted criminal fever for the 2nd time. Male doctors thought I was faking so I could go home to England for my fans, but I never did. Sadly, after 11 years of writing letters, I died on August 13, 1910. I outlived my mother, father, and sister. I am Florence Nightingale.
I was a famous race car driver from 1975 to 2001. I am Dale Earnhardt Sr. When I was a child, if I wasn't paying attention in class, I was always thinking about racing. I am one of 5 children, but sadly one of them died at age 3. Once I was an adult, I was very poor until I won $200,000 in a race. I later went on to marry a woman named Teresa, but then I was getting complaints that my driving was too aggressive. But that didn't stop me. I won the biggest race of my life in 1990. It was the Daytona 500. After that, I set my goal to be the best race car driver in the world. It didn't happen for a while though because people thought I looked and sounded weird. After I surpassed the former best race car driver in the world, I was becoming the face of NASCAR. I broke my neck in a race car crash and sadly died in 2001. I am still remembered today for being the best race car driver in the world. I am Dale Earnhardt Sr.
I'm a scientist who made the first clock in America and published many almanacs. I am Benjamin Banneker. I was born on November 9th, 1731 in Ellicott Mills, Maryland. When I was just 6 years old, I started working on my parents' tobacco farm. Only a few years later, I went to school for 4 years, but I had to drop out to work full-time on the farm. But that just made me want to learn more. Later on, I couldn't tell time the sun was covered, so I asked a friend for a pocket watch, then made my own watch in wood, and made my own clock. When I got older, I had to sell my farm and live in a cabin. Later on, I started publishing almanacs. I didn't stop writing. I'd stopped instructing my pen. In 1806, I died in my sleep at 75 years old. At the day of my funeral, my house burned down, destroying all my inventions. I was a scientist, inventor, pioneer, and a mathematician. I am Benjamin Banneker.
In 1921, I won the Nobel Peace Prize for my expertise in physics. I was famous for my theory of relativity and my scientific mind. I am Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein is my full name. I didn't have a middle name, and nor did my father. I was born on March 14, 1879 in Germany. My mom, Pauline, dad, Herman, and my little sister, Maya. I like to recreate stuff. Other kids would tease me for asking questions like, why does the earth move? And they didn't know the answer either. People would say I was amazing at math and physics. I went to school for about 15 years in Germany. During my last 3 years, my family moved to Italy for my dad to find better work. I moved to Italy for a year or 2, then moved back to Switzerland to graduate. When I was 21, I moved back to Italy and became a professor of math. In Italy, I got married and had 3 children. They were Hans, Edward, and Lizzie Einstein. Because the genius of my news traveled over the world, Israel requested me to be their president. But I respectfully declined, stating I wasn't the right man for the job. Sadly, I died on April 18, 1955 from aneurysm that occurred because I declined surgery saying I want to go when I want. I was famous for the photoelectric effect. I am Albert Einstein.
As a kid, I loved to read and write, and that led me to make Marvel and X-Men. I am Stan Lee. I was born December 28, 1922 in New York City. I had a younger brother named Larry. I've worked all my life starting at the age of 12. I took a job at Timely Publishing Company and changed my pen name to Stan Lee. I volunteered to join the Army in 1942 and got the job of playwright. I married Jim Bucock in 1947 and we had 2 daughters, but sadly one died. In 2001, my company filed for bankruptcy. In the first Spider-Man movie, I made no profit. I worked at Marvel for 60 years. When I made the Hulk, he was supposed to be gray, but the printer turned him green, and I liked it, so I let it stay. On November 12, 2018, I died from heart failure. I am remembered today for creating Marvel and X-Men, and here's some of the characters I created. Spider-Man, Iron Man, Hulk, Black Panther, and Thor. One thing I always said was I've worked all my life. If I'm not working, I feel like I'm wasting my time. I am Stan Lee.
I helped end segregation, and I was known for being one of the greatest civil rights leaders of all time. I was also known for leading with peaceful protests. I am Martin Luther King Jr. I was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. I had 2 sisters and 2 brothers. When I was 5, I realized that black people were treated differently than white people were. This realization stayed with me. I became a minister like my dad, and I led a boycott that let black people to ride in the front of the bus. I kept leading with peaceful protests. After that, in 1963, JFK passed the Civil Rights Bill. After that, I led a march to D.C. where I gave my famous I Have a Dream speech. A couple years later, I won the Nobel Peace Prize. The last march I led ended in violence. I was shot and killed by James Earl Ray. Yet my life made a difference. I am Martin Luther King Jr. I created 300 products out of peanuts, including punch, milk, dyes, and soap. I had many struggles due to my race. I am George Washington Carver. I was born in 1864 in Diamond Grove, Missouri. My owners were Moses and Susan Carver. My mother Mary was a slave for them. Slave raiders, what we called bushwhackers, took my mom and me. I was at a very young age. A Union Scout found me and returned me. I was then considered free. I was very curious, though I was often sick. I wanted to learn and go to school, but around Diamond Grove there's no school for black students. I opened a laundry business in Minneapolis, earned a little money, and bought a small plot of land. I sold it and moved into the larger town of Kansas City. I went to Simpson College. Then I went to Iowa State University to pursue an agricultural degree. Then I was invited to be the director of the agricultural borough at Tuskegee Institute. I did experiments with peanuts there. I created punch, milk, dyes, and soap out of peanuts. I published pamphlets about how to produce rich soil. I invited farmers to come look at the rich soil I created. I also encouraged them to grow sweet potatoes. Sadly, I died on January 5th, 1943. I am remembered for all the products made out of peanuts and my agricultural skills. I am George Washington Carver.
I will be remembered as a huge talent. I was also an animal lover. I am famous for performing on the TV show The Golden Girls. I am Betty White. I was born January 17th, 1922. I was married but never had children. I was in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest entertainer. I was in the TV industry for over 74 years. I was on the radio show before I was on TV. I hosted the Rose Parade for 19 years. I faced many struggles because I was a woman. I became a successful actress. I died December 31st, 2021, 17 days before my 100th birthday. I had a stroke. Many people celebrated my life. I am Betty White.
When I was young, I didn't have much money, but I grew up to be a very successful silent movie star. After I died, I was still remembered in the motion picture industry. I am Charlie Chaplin. I was born on April 16, 1889, in London, England, to Charles and Hannah Chaplin. I had one brother named Sidney. When I was older, I joined the Fred Carnot Vaudeville Company. I was great at comedy. Later, I moved to America to be in silent films. I worked for Keystone Studios. Eventually, I created the Little Tramp character. My wife, Una, and I had 8 children. During the Cold War, I was suspected of being a communist since I wasn't an official American, so my family and I moved to Switzerland. Later, I returned to America to receive an Academy Award for helping make motion pictures the art form of the century. I died on December 25th, 1977. I was 88 years old. All my life I said, I'm just a nickel comedian trying to make people laugh. I am Charlie Chaplin.
I was one of the world's greatest runners, but before I became famous, I suffered from many diseases. One even caused me to not be able to walk until I was 8 years old. I am Wilma Rudolph. I was born on June 23rd, 1940 in Bethlehem, Tennessee. I had a big family. I was the 20th child out of 22 children. When I was little, I got sick very often and was frequently alone and felt betrayed. When I was allowed to go to school, other kids teased me and some even threw rocks at me. When I had polio and had to wear a metal brace, sometimes I went outside and tried to walk in secret. I did not let the brace prevent me from walking around the neighborhood and playing with friends. The first time I walked down the aisle by myself, I walked down the aisle in church to the amazement of all who saw. In high school, I was a very good basketball player and runner. I traveled all around the world for races. I was in the Olympics and won a gold medal. Sadly, my dad died in 1961. Later, I graduated from running and became a second grade teacher. I died on November 12, 1994, but should always be remembered because of the hardships I had to overcome. I am Wilma Rudolph.
I'm famous for making cartoons and Disneyland amusement park. I am Walt Disney. I was born in the early 1900s to Eli's and Flora Disney. My family struggled with not having enough money, so I moved to Kansas City to pursue my passion for art. I couldn't earn enough money, so I moved to Hollywood where my brother was living. I met and married Lillian Bounds, and we had a baby named Diane Mary Disney. Later, I introduced the world to Mickey Mouse in the cartoon Steamboat Willie. Mickey Mouse was doing super well until a dishonest distributor tried to gain control of him. My team started working on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I was creating an amusement park called Disneyland. It was a success and I began to plan Disney World. But I died on December 15th, 1966, before it became a reality. One quote that describes my determination to succeed is, "It's kind of fun to do the impossible." I am Walt Disney.
We built too many walls and not enough bridges. That's what I like to say. I'm known for discovering gravity and extending our knowledge of color and light. I am Sir Isaac Newton. I was born January 4th, 1642. My father died 3 months before I was born, and my mother got married to a person who didn't want kids, so she left me. She eventually came back with a half-brother and 2 half-sisters. I went to a local village school, but I seemed unusually intelligent, so my mother decided to send me to the King's School. I eventually got into Trinity College, but in 1655 the plague broke out and my college shut down. These were my most productive years of my life, and I started to wonder how apples fell from trees. I came to the conclusion that smaller objects attract to bigger objects. I became a recluse and in that time believed in alchemy. I tried to turn ordinary metals into gold, but I failed. I came out of hiding and started to make coins out of mint. I was so good at making coins that I became the warden of the mint and soon the master of the mint. I was knighted by Queen in 1705. I died March 20th, 1726. I am Sir Isaac Newton.
From a young age, I was very smart. Later in life, I created many inventions that helped develop modern-day technology. I am Nikola Tesla. I was born on July 10th, 1856, in Croatia to Milton and Duca. My father was an Orthodox priest, writer, and a poet. My mother inspired my love for inventing. I later attended college, but in my 3rd year, I dropped out of school. Soon after, I got a job repairing power plants for the Continental Edison Company. Then, I moved to America to work with Thomas Edison. After a while, I left Edison to work on my own. I formed Tesla Electric Company. In my life, many bad things happened to me. For example, in 1895, my New York lab burned along with a year's worth of notes and equipment. Many inventions created during this time weren't possible without my ideas.
I lived in New York for 60 years. I died on January 7th, 1943 at age 86, and I was one of the most influential people in history. I am Nikola Tesla.
I was born in 1680. My name is Edward Teach, or Thatch to some. My true identity is still a mystery, but that's all part of my plan. Folks today just call me Blackbeard. I learned to fight during the War of Spanish Succession and became a buccaneer. I turned to a life of piracy and traveled to Nassau where I met the famous pirate Ben Hornigold. We seized and plundered merchant ships along America's east coast. That summer I met Gentleman Stead Bonnet and took command of ship the Revenge. Using fear as my weapon, I terrorized the colonies. I'd light cannon fuses twisted into my beard. Burning and smoking, they thought I was the devil himself. I captured a slave ship, but freed its prisoners and refitted it with 40 guns. This would become my new flagship, Queen's Anne Revenge. My fleet of 4 ships and 250 men rampaged west to attack the Spanish in the Gulf of Mexico. We blockaded Charleston for 6 days until leaving to find a hideout in North Carolina. But my flagship ran aground. We were attacked by a naval task force, taken by surprise, outnumbered 3-1. We fought till the bitter end. I died in 1718. Trust me when I tell you, Blackbeard does not go down easily.
I am Stephen Hawking, a teacher of Nikola Einstein. My full name is Stephen William Hawking. I was born in Oxford, England, January 8, 1942. I had 3 siblings. Although smart, I rarely studied. I wanted a major in math, but Oxford didn't offer someone with physics. Oxford was the best interviewing even more with the score, so I was accepted. And my last year, I kept bumping and stumbling unexpectedly. However, I ignored it. I had top honors and was working for my PhD. I get paid doing research. I married Jane Wilde and had 3 beautiful children. I couldn't hide my concerns, so I told my parents and my wife I had ALS, a disease of the nervous system. I will keep losing my ability to move my muscles. I use a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I had to go to the hospital. I had pneumonia. Weeks after I recovered, I would never talk again. I divorced Janie and remarried Ellen Mason. I was awarded Presidential Medal of Freedom. I died peacefully in my sleep on March 14, 2018. I will always be remembered as a famous author and physicist. I am Stephen Hawking.
Forbid it, oh my God, I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. This is a famous quote from a speech that I gave to the Virginia legislature in Richmond, Virginia. I'm one of America's founding fathers and the first governor of Virginia. I am Patrick Henry. I was born on May 29th, 1736 in Hanover County, Virginia. I lived on a plantation with 7 sisters, a brother, and a half-brother. I was homeschooled by my father, and at the age of 15, my father sent me and my brother to learn business from Scotch merchants. In 1754, I married Sally Shelton and went on to have a family. I learned law to support my family, which led me on a road to political success, winning me a seat in the Virginia House of Burgesses. I also became a delegate to the First Continental Congress. I also became the first governor of Virginia. As an anti-federalist, I rejected the U.S. Constitution because it didn't have a Bill of Rights infringed on the states' rights. In the end, I tried to retire but was talked into the Virginia Assembly in 1799 by George Washington. However, before I could take office, I died on June 6th. I lived a full life as inspiring speaker, lawyer, politician, and family man. I fought for states' rights and inspired the first 10 amendments known as the Bill of Rights. I am Patrick Henry.
I am one of the most famous female artists of all time. I am a woman who loved the heart of Mexico. I am Frida Kahlo. I was born on July 6, 1907 in Coyoacán, Mexico at La Casa Azul. When I was 6, I had polio. As a result, I had to spend a lot of time in bed, but I recovered. In high school, I was accepted into Escuela Nacional Preparatoria, National Preparatory School. At the age of 18, I was in a bad bus accident. I had to spend even more time in bed and borrowed my father's paints. I started to paint in bed and decided to be an artist. I met Diego Rivera. We fell in love and married. He took me with him to the U.S. for his art. I missed Mexico. I painted a picture called My Dress Hangs Here to symbolize that my body and dress was in the U.S., but my soul was in Mexico. One time, I met Pablo Picasso, who invited me to do an art exhibit at the Louvre Museum. I was the first Mexican artist to have art there. He gave me hand earrings as a gift. Sadly, on July 13th, 1954, I died at La Casa Azul, the place I had been born 47 years earlier. I am Frida Kahlo.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I am Fred McFeely Rogers, but you all know me as Mr. Rogers. I am known today for my children's shows. As a boy, I loved music, and I wrote over 200 songs, including my theme song that plays at the beginning of each episode. Once, when I was just hired at the NBC Opera Theater, I told the crew to raise the curtains because I thought Joanne Bird was done recording. But really, she wasn't done yet. That day, I was pretty embarrassed. But sadly, I died on February 27th, 2003 of sudden stomach cancer. But my legacy still lives on in my granddaughter's TV show on PBS called Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. I am Fred McFeely Rogers.
Carry out a random act of kindness with no expectation of reward save in the knowledge that one day someone might do the same for you. This was something I strongly believe. I am famous for my royalty, being kind, and being the Princess of Wales. I am Princess Diana. I was born on July 1st, 1961. I had 3 siblings. As a child, I was very athletic. When I was 7, my parents divorced. I attended 3 schools. When I was 18, I moved into my own apartment and took a job as an assistant kindergarten teacher. I worked hard at being kind. I was involved in many charities and worked for Red Cross. I met Prince Charles. Later, we had a beautiful wedding. Within a few years, our sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, were born. Later on, me and Prince Charles divorced. I used my own clothing to help raise money for the people in need. Sadly, on August 30th, 1997, I died. The paparazzi chased my car, and we crashed in a tunnel. I will always be remembered today for being the people's princess in my charity work. I am Princess Diana.
I once said, anytime you have the opportunity to make a difference in this world and you don't, you're wasting your time on earth. I'm an amazing baseball player, Roberto Clemente. I was born in August 1934 in Carolina, Puerto Rico. I had 3 brothers, 1 stepbrother, and 1 stepsister. Sadly, my sister died in a kitchen fire. As a child, my family and I faced segregation. I played for several teams, including the Dodgers minor league team and the Pittsburgh Pirates. I married a woman named Vera and had 3 kids named Roberto, Jr., Luis, and Enrique. I'm a World Series winner, an All-Star, an MVP, the first Latin American baseball player to be inducted in the Hall of Fame, a 12-time Gold Glove winner, and I hit exactly 3,000 hits before my death on December 31st, 1972. I died in a plane crash while delivering supplies to people in need. I am Roberto Clemente.
My name is George Herman Ruth Jr., but you know me better as Babe Ruth. As some other nicknames you may know too, the Sultan Swat and the Bambino. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, February 6, 1895. I was the oldest of 8 children. My family was very poor and I would get into trouble as a kid. My parents couldn't stand it anymore. My dad rode a trolley with me and dropped me off at St. Mary's Industrial School for boys. I was 7 years old. One of my teachers knew I was skilled in baseball. I considered myself a hoodlum. I was thankful for my love of baseball kept me on the straight and narrow. The Baltimore Orioles offered me $600 to play minor league baseball in 1914. I got traded to the Boston Red Sox in 1916. I won the first game I played 4-3. Later, I got traded to the New York Yankees in 1920 where I played for 15 years. I helped them win 4 World Series championships. I am famous for breaking multiple records and leading my team to victory. In all, I hit 714 home runs, a mark that stood until 1974. I played for the Baltimore Orioles minor league team, Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees, and the Boston Braves. I was also inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame. I was quoted saying, "Don't let the fear striking you out hold you back." My jersey number was retired by the Yankees June 13, 1948. No Yankee player can wear the number 3 again. I died of throat cancer August 16, 1948. I was 52 years old. I am Babe Ruth.
It was great after a 5-year-long voyage across the world when I published my book, The Origin of Species. In this book, I would publish the evolutionary theory of evolution. I am Charles Darwin. I was born in the early 1800s and I had 5 siblings, but early on my mother died. I went to Edinburgh University at 17, but changed to Christ College to become a minister. In the 1830s, I had the opportunity of a lifetime to sail across the world for 5 years. I set sail the same year, and we sailed across the world, but our most important stop was at the Galapagos Islands, where I saw many creatures like marine iguanas. When I went back to England, I wrote my book, The Origin of Species, in which I would publish the theory of evolution. I became bald and I suffered from seizures and died in April 1882. I am remembered for sparking a revolution of evolution and being one of the best naturalists of all time. I am Charles Darwin.
It's hard to believe I came from a little French boy to a deep-sea explorer. I am Jacques Cousteau. I was born on June 11th, 1910 in Saint-André-de-Cubzac, France. When I was little, I suffered from enteritis and anemia. When I was young, my mom and dad sent me to boarding school. Later, I joined the French Navy, and that became my job. After a workday, I would go swimming with my friends in the local lake just to explore. Once while on an expedition with the French Navy, I got caught up in the Six-Day War. Later, I retired and spent more time in the water. But I wanted to spend even more time beneath the waves, but I could not figure out the right air to use. I tried helium, but if I went too deep, the air would become poisonous. After my many attempts, I found out the right mixture of O2 and invented scuba diving. Scuba stands for Self-Contained Underwater Breathing Apparatus. I invented a new sport. I died on June 25th, 1997 at the age of 87. I am Jacques Cousteau.
I was America's first Native American prima ballerina. I danced for kings and queens during my famous Firebird performance. I am Marie Tallchief. My name is Betty Marie Elizabeth Tallchief Porter. I was born on January 24th, 1925 in Fairfax, Oklahoma, in the Osage Indian Reservation. My sister and I started ballet as children. My grandmother taught me about my Osage heritage. I was always entranced by the beat of the powwow drums. After my family moved to California, I became the student of a Russian dancer, Madame Nojinska. Madame told me I must eat, sleep, and stand like a ballerina. After high school, I had a role in a movie and I toured with a ballet company. Then I eventually married a choreographer, created a new ballet just for me called the Firebird. I danced in Paris, New York, Russia, and around the world. My dream of becoming America's first Native American prima ballerina came true. In December 2012, I broke my hip and died on April 11th, 2013 from my injury. I was considered to be America's first Native American prima ballerina. I am Marie Tallchief.
I am known for being one of the best inventors ever. I invented more than 1,000 inventions, including the phonograph and light bulb. I am Thomas Alva Edison. I was born in 1847 in Milan, Ohio. When I was 7, I moved to Port Huron, Michigan. When I worked on a train as a newsboy, I got fired quickly because I set the train up in flames while doing an experiment. Soon after, I got scarlet fever, which affected my hearing. I did not have a traditional education because I was homeschooled. Later in my life, I married Mary Stillwell and had 3 children together. Soon after, Mary died. I remarried Mina Miller. My most successful invention was a phonograph, but I lit up my own property in New York and amazed thousands of people with my light bulb. Sadly, I died on October 13th, 1931. Until this day, I am remembered to be a great inventor. I am Thomas Alva Edison.
Have you ever wanted to save animals? Well, I did. I saved animals with inspirational TV shows. I am Steve Irwin. I was born February 22nd, 1962 in Burwalk, Queensland. I opened a zoo when I was 7. I married Terry Irwin and had 2 kids, Robert and Bindi Irwin. I had job training at East Coast Crocodile Management Program. I realized it was too hard for me, so I stuck with the zoo. Later, both Bindi and Robert had their own TV shows. Sadly, I died in 2006 doing what I loved. A stingray's barb pierced my heart, so I died. There are still Irwin TV shows today, and I hope they will carry on my love of animals. I am Steve Irwin.
If you want to see change in the world, then be the change desired. That was one of my famous quotes.
I am Mahatma Gandhi. I, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, was born on October 2nd, 1869 in Porbandar, India. I married at 13 to a wonderful woman named Kasturba. I passed my law exams on June 10th, 1891. I started my career in South Africa and shared my ideas to improve the treatment of other Indians in South Africa. In 1894, I set up the Natal Indian Congress, aka the NIC. Then I moved to India to regain its independence from the British, and we succeeded. We regained India's independence using nonviolence and non-cooperation. Finally, my country got its independence on August 15, 1947. I died January 30th, 1948, but will always be remembered as a great humanitarian. I am Mahatma Gandhi.
I always said hard work outweighs talent. I am Kobe Bean Bryant. I'm a 5-time All-Star, a professional basketball player, the youngest All-Star in the NBA. I was born on August 3, 1978 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was named after a famous beef of Kobe, Japan. My parents saw on a restaurant menu. When I was in high school, I got drafted to the NBA at the age of 17. I led the Los Angeles Lakers to 5 NBA championships and led the league in scoring during the 2005, 2006, and 2007 seasons. On April 18, 2001, I married Vanessa Bryant. We had 4 children named Jenna, Natalie, Brianna, Briannica, and Capri, who are all amazing basketball players. Sadly, I died on January 26, 2020 in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, California. I will always be remembered because I am one of the most famous basketball players who ever lived. I am Kobe Bean Bryant.